ladies and gentlemen. This is Payne from 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗧 here on IOH number 220. Today, it seems to be quite a busy day in the crypto space. So, yeah, let's get started with the repo watch. And I'm passing the microphone to Juan, or maybe not.
Maybe me. Hey, Ben. Hello, everyone. This week's Repo Watch is going to be really quick. There was no releases anywhere. And with that, I'll now hand over to Juan for the protocol watch.
Okay, that was a quick one. I'm not gonna
Well,
be
actually,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, Aragon was released 2 weeks ago, the V15. Yeah, no, go ahead. It's all good.
Okay, I'm not gonna be able to win in this case because we do have one small update in Protocol Watch, not for forum governance, not for forum research, and not for network subgraphs, but the contract repository has one PR that has been updated, which is one of the audit fixes for Horizon. So that's pretty much it for Protocol Watch 2. So I'm gonna be handing over to Kate now.
Yeah, quite a busy week, eh? Oh, I forgot to say this is a participation, and we love conversation, or yeah, something in the lines of that. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's a
Kate.
conversation, and we welcome participation, I think. Yes. Similar to last week, we have our Sepolia report before the tab, and we're hoping to submit it together along with Chapel to get a council vote depending on how the tab vote goes. So I will keep folks posted around like when it looks like we'll get closer to potentially getting rewards for those two chains. And we have made some good headway on testing for Unichain. So that'll be the other chain coming up as a potential for rewards. I think that's it at the moment. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, Kate. All right, so next up, well, I can see that we have. So in the open discussion, it seems like we have Vince from Notify, a demo of Firehose remote reader. And then if time permits, we have Postgres AMA with David Lotta and John Grabber from Edge and Node and Derek from Data Nexus. And then if time permits, and then we have Orion from the Graph Foundation to lead the discussion about the new changes to index rewards requirements. Am I missing anything prior to this? Well, it looks like that's everything. So Vince, do you want to say something or?
Yeah, I would love to do my little piece if you are ready.
Okay, I'm sure. Go ahead.
Alrighty. So what I'm going to be presenting today, Wizard related. No, it is not. So what I'm going to be showing today is some of the Helm charts I wrote for Firehose pertaining to just running a full Firehose and also chunking Firehose blocks with remote reader or Firehose Polar. Abel, do you still have the link I sent you for the charts? Okay, cool. So what I will show you guys is I'll kind of walk through the chart and then show a quick demo of me playing with it, and then I'll also show you some chunking stuff with Argo CD workflows as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me know if you can see that. I'll make it bigger if possible. Is that big enough? You can, or it needs to be bigger? I'll make it bigger. Okay, so the two charts, they're exactly similar besides the images and the automation for updating them. So I'll just walk through the fire hose core chart. Um, so what I've done here is kind of broken it down into sections for either running a full fire hose and substream. So substreams is in here as well. So running a full fire hose or chunking it with one of the two options. Um, so with fire hose, usually there's a lot of common configs. So this is where like your buckets get pointed to. A little bigger if possible. Okay. Is that big enough? Yes. Okay. So there are common configs in fire hose and substreams. And common config. So this is kind of where your buckets go. And if you have a metering plugin and just any really, so these flags will apply to all the components of Firehose. And then this is kind of where it breaks down to you can select which mode. Full, which is your normal fire hose, and then chunk, which is just running the reader and merger to ingest blocks into your buckets. Then you can parallelize these jobs so you can get them done really quickly instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you run full, you can also turn on and off each component as you wish. So in full mode, it will run the beacon client, and you can add the config flags here for the checkpoint sync if you want the blobs on, what network, and whether you want it on or off. And then you also have the same thing for substreams. You have your ingress and true or false, and you have your configs down here. And you can enable it or not, just like I said. And then these are the components of Firehose you guys are all familiar with: the Firehose endpoint, gRPC, the reader, merger, relayer, indexer. What's Payne saying? The two people that are using Kubes for running graphs, I could probably say. Well, you're going to need to because you're going to see why. So get on the Kube train. So you can run all these components and add these various configs. And then the chunking mode, which I talked about, you can choose two different options, Firehose or Polar. And so, and this will use a remote Firehose endpoint. So you can use a Pinax endpoint, your friend's endpoint, whoever's endpoint you want to use, and it will pull and ingest those blocks from a separate Firehose. And what you will do is you can select a start block, an end block, and how many paralyzed workers you want to accomplish that task. So if you wanted, for example, and you did method fire hose, you would want this to be filled out so you have the fire hose endpoint that it can ingest blocks from. And then here's where you can add to your configs for your reader and merger, because like I said, chunking is just reader and merger ingesting blocks into your substreams, or not your substreams, into your S3 buckets. So here I have one that's basically filled out to just run Ethereum. And you can see here I have 400 of storage, 400 gigs of storage for Lighthouse, 4 terabytes for the reader node for running Geth. I have the ingress off for right now, and all this stuff. And then I also have my, reader node arguments, which are important per chain. uh, and all your other components, like I said. So I will go ahead and launch that real quick and kind of show you guys what that's all about. Just give me one moment. And I'll go ahead and break off because I am using Argo CD. So I'm going to quick sync it, and you should see it pop up here. All right. There's all my IOH Ethereum.
I have a question. How
Yes.
are you not getting blind for looking at such a small text all day?
Well, mine's in 4K and it's 32 inches in front of my face, so
Fair
it's
point.
actually a lot bigger for me.
Yeah, fair point.
So I'll try to make this bigger too, because it's huge for me. Like I'd be a blind person to be using this. So you can see all the logs, and you can see everything's working. and it's running a full fire hose, and I could also enable substreams if I wanted. So it'll run a full fire hose and substreams in one chart. I'm not going to show the chunking on the Helm chart because it is more of a, you need to create individual YAMLs. So I'm going to go ahead and show you basically what Argo CD. So you can use the Helm chart, but there is also Argo CD workflows, and this is why Pane's going to jump to cubes. So here I have Argo CD workflows, and I'll kind of show you the actual workflow. So we'll look at Solana, for instance. So this is a workflow template, so you can utilize it in the Argo CD UI, and it's just a CRD with Argo CD workflows, and it's basically just a script. And what it'll do is I'll be able to pick the block, pick how many workers I want, say whatever image I want to run, a different Firehose image. But essentially, I can just pick blocks, how many workers I want, and hit a button go, and it will start ingesting. And it will alert me on Discord, tell me when it starts, tell me when it stops. So I'll go ahead and show you what that experience is like. So all I have to do is go in here to workflow templates, Solana Firehose, hit submit. And this is a demo, so I will just do like 2,000 blocks. And let's say I want 5 paralyzed workers. I have my Firehose endpoint, my Ceph credentials, and my Firehose core image, my chain name Solana. I can just go ahead and hit submit, and it will run this workflow. And I got to change namespaces so you can actually see it. So right now it has notified me in Discord. And now what it's doing is it's doing the math to determine, okay, I picked 5 workers. This is how many blocks I'm doing. So this one's going to do 0 to 1,000. This next one's going to do, and it's going to go back 100 blocks. So it'll start at 900 and then go to 1,000, or however it does all the math for you to determine how many paralyzed workers. And it already completed. But what you can see is what I'll show you, the config it made. So it made this Firehose config, and it made config maps for each of the reader node fire hoses using a remote reader. So all it did was steal from another fire hose, and you can see, for instance, where's chunk 0 YAML. So this did 0 to 500, block 0 to 500, and this did 800 to 300, 1300, and this did 400. So you can see it goes behind 100. So you get that little bit of overlap. And also with Firehose like this, you need even numbers. You can't do 913 because then you'll get block gaps. So it does all the hard work for you. It'll do, and the Helm chart will do the same thing where it does all the math for you. You just have to tell it how many workers. Here's my Firehose endpoint. I want to do block 0 to block 1,000,000, whatever it is. You can also plug it into an API that gives you block numbers if you have anything like that. And you can just have auto. And so you never have to determine what 100 behind block head is or chain head is. It'll just do the math for you. So that's kind of how that works. I haven't checked chat in a while. The Helm chart states Lighthouse. Is this configurable for other clients? At the moment, no, but you could make it. I could make it configurable for other clients if you wanted. It just, I don't see a reason why. Lighthouse works fine, but if you have a reason for me to switch, I will definitely add it if it's something that's needed. Any other questions? Pain is pushing Docker. You'll never scale Pain. And no, anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, I've got questions.
Yes,
And some of these might be really dumb questions, right? Because Vincent handles all the big brain stuff on our side. I'm more so on the database level, right? So in this use case, we are going to another Firehose node and populating our own S3 bucket with the Firehose blocks. We're not going. Are we going directly from the chain saying, "Hey, run the first 2,000 blocks of Solana"? I mean, I guess that probably isn't available on Solana, so that might not be the right choice.
Yes. So what you're doing is you're stealing from another Firehose and you're ingesting in your own buckets. So you don't
Okay.
actually have to have it. You don't have to, sync whatever. You can just steal from another Firehose, chunk all those into your own bucket. So it's almost like paralyzing downloading the chain in, a very short time and stealing that from another Firehose endpoint. Or you could
Okay.
use
So
you could use an RPC too with RPC Polar.
okay, so this is kind of a suggestion, kind of open question or whatever, but can we make it to where this defaults to utilizing a graph.market endpoint for, the Firehose provider, in network rather than going into Discord and trying to find someone, ad hoc type of thing?
Yeah, so Firehose as a service essentially on the network.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that would be awesome. I
I
plus one
mean,
that.
well, I guess, are there blockers towards doing that?
That's kind of above my pay grade. I think that involves a lot more people than just me. But there are Firehose endpoints out there, and also you can use PinX. They have tons of them. But yeah, or your friend, whatever. But yeah, as far as I know, getting it on the network, that would be awesome. As Firehose as a service, I just don't know what that would require. Oh, you're saying on the market with the get API key using that Firehose?
Yeah, I mean, would that be like that API key that's obtained on graph.market? Would that be a sufficient way to
Yeah.
connect into this so that you could do remote reading and then pay via the network and blah blah blah?
As far as I know, yeah, I've never used that on the graph.market, to be totally honest with you. But if it's a working Firehose endpoint, yeah, any will do. I'm just not,
Nice.
I've never used that, but yeah, any Firehose endpoint will do.
Cool.
And you can also use anybody's RPC too, if you can't, or if you want to go that route, you can also do someone's RPC and do it that way. Any other questions, suggestions, comments, concerns, additions? Or are we all good?
Sorry, one more question. And then in terms of like sectioning this off for different chains, right? Like we just ran it for Solana that gets its own namespace. Presumably, we would just create a separate namespace for each chain that we wanted to stream. Like say Data Nexus tomorrow wants to go and say, great, we want base blocks. Hey, PinX, we're going to connect via the graph.market. We want to get the whole history of base blocks. It seems like that would be a pretty simple way to connect up and, offer fee for the service of giving us those blocks and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, obviously, if you use a friend's endpoint, it's not going to cost anything. But if you use the API key and you just launch Solana, you can use it to either, download the entire history to get synced up quickly shortly before Chainhead, or you can also just use it in an emergency, like you have a block gap, and you can put that block gap in the start and stop block. and fill that gap, so you can continue running your fire hose. So you can run that in parallel. You still have your broken fire hose, but it is supporting, X blocks or whatever, but you're missing a gap in the chain. So you can use this as like a patch and say, oh, kind of patch this hole in my fire hose. You don't necessarily have to use it to paralyze the whole chain. Obviously, I would, because it'll save you a huge amount of time. But it's also beneficial in fixing your fire hose quickly. And I will share the Argo CD workflow later. It's just Argo CD isn't as widely used as Kubernetes. I mean, Kubernetes is already hard pressed for some people to jump to Kubernetes, but Argo CD even more so, because it's just another opinionated choice. But if you do use Argo CD and you want to utilize the workflows, just let me know and I'll share those with you. And if nothing else, I will double it and pass it on to the next person if no one else has any other questions. Thank you, Mickey.
All right. Thank you so much, Vince. Cool. So I guess we can move on to the next section, which is Postgres AMA with David Lutter, John Grabber, and Derek from Data Nexus. And then we also have David to present the latest changes with GraphNode, and there's a little presentation there. Cool. Let's see. We still
want to
have
start
David.
with the Letter. Do we want to start with the presentation, and then as people have questions focus more on the database, we can kind of pick this up one by one?
I don't see David in the active members list, though. He might have dropped.
That might not be very good for presenting. I also don't see John here. I mean, I'm happy to help answer any Postgres questions and oh yeah, gotcha.
I'm confused. Was this rescheduled or not? Because it's still in the agenda for today.
I have a Postgres question really quick.
Sure.
Sure, go ahead.
What are you is there anything you can share on, I guess, as an indexer, your Postgres kind of grabs a lot of bloat and everything. What is your best
Yeah.
method and everything of, like, I guess, tending to your garden with Postgres right now?
Yeah, I'll share essentially kind of the workflow that we currently have, because we've got different instances. We're on a sharded database, right? And right now we're keeping that mostly to we have shards kind of per chain, and then for some chains we have a VIP shard. So we have like Arbitrum and then an Arbitrum VIP. Sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat. Yeah, so what we're doing right now is, as a shard starts to fill up in its storage, we have, one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to try to identify, like, what is causing this, right? Usually it's one, maybe two specific subgraphs. And then, from there, there's kind of an inspection of like, okay, well, what is this subgraph, right? Is this something that is an active version on the decentralized network? Is it an n-1? Is it some random ad hoc subgraph that I told the guys that we should sync because we're working with somebody and it's not even necessary, so go ahead and delete it. If we find out that it is necessary, the next step is we look and see like, okay, well, is this thing getting query traffic, or is it just simply like a deployment that has a lot of signal and no usage? If that's the case, then we have a couple of options. One of the first options is that we can prune the database, which is going to only get rid of archived versions of entities, and it will keep all live versions of entities. And you can adjust that to where you say, hey, I just want to prune the archived entities that are from 90 days or earlier, right? But I want to keep all recent information and all live versions of any entities. That can tremendously shrink the overall database size because inside of Postgres, right, every entity change acts as a new insert, and that way you have different versions of entities. So if we were to use a subgraph that we're all familiar with, like the network subgraph, we each have an indexer entity, associated with our indexer address. Now, every time you get a delegation, your total delegation pool changes. That's going to create a new insert into the indexer table, and you will have a new version of your indexer entity. The only time where you care about archival entities is if you're doing a time traveling query, where you basically tell the GraphQL API, like, hey, pretend I'm running this 2 months ago. Give me my results. And that will quite literally do a time traveling query, and it will report, a prior version's state. So when you're pruning, you just get rid of those prior versions, which can oftentimes make up a huge percentage of your overall storage space. The other big thing that we'll do is we look at the columns, because by default, GraphNode creates an index on every column. And especially on some subgraphs, like we were looking at the quality of service subgraph the other day, and it's got this one column which has just a whole bunch of JSON data. And that blobs pretty quickly inside of the database, and then you index it. Well, that's going to be, I think it was something like a 500 gigabyte index or something like outrageously big, and no one queries that one column, right? You don't order by that column, you don't filter by that column. That column doesn't really matter. It's just stored there as a way to then populate data into other columns so that we can flatten our information out. And that way you can actually limit things to a specific day range, or order things by the total number of queries, or however you want to write your things. And so we went through and we're like, great, delete all indexes on those nasty JSON columns, and reclaimed a whole bunch of space. Yeah, that column sucks. If it's needed, it's needed, but ultimately you don't need an index on it, right? And so it took us a second to, kind of slap ourselves on the face and say, oh, that's just not needed. Let's get rid of it. And then we reclaimed a whole bunch of space. And so for a while, we were kind of going through this methodology of like, oh no, we're starting to run out of space. Well, just give it more, right? Without really having any inspection on like, what waste currently exists inside of, inside the database, which ultimately led into what, the business logic of like, okay, well, what do we consider not useful? So that's kind of what we've determined so far. Am I using a clanker to help yet for the initial digging? Not yet. We have one guy on our team who comes from kind of a DBA background, and I've tasked him with these types of things. And so he's going through some of the logic, like the business logic of, is this useful? It just needs to be defined, further defined, so we can like automate this process a little bit more. We're also in a little bit of an odd position where we're somewhat regularly indexing rando deployments that that I'm building or that we're helping a client with or whatever. And so we have, subgraphs in our database that just don't exist in the decentralized network. And so we have to just be a little bit cautious about that. But I definitely think there's room for automation. That was a little bit long-winded, but did that successfully answer the question?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
All right. Any more questions? It looks like we have no more questions. I mean, if I'm looking at the chat, the only non-core-dev indexer that's present in this chat is basically me, besides Data Nexus, which I already have Derek, which is the one that's answering questions. So if I don't have any questions, then I guess we can move forward.
I have a non-Postgres question for the indexers out here. With some recent conversations about setting up the different environment variables with GraphNode. I guess as a first touch, like how many of you guys are going through and like reviewing the different environment variables and tweaking things and testing out what's an appropriate value in some of these different things? Or I should say more simply, how many of us are just running defaults versus actively making tweaks?
Well, there's nobody to answer.
Well, I mean, like Payne, are you running defaults? Pinax, are you guys running defaults? Are you tweaking this stuff? Like, what are other people
Defaults
doing?
in Postgres settings or defaults in
No, not in Postgres, in GraphNode.
In
Like
GraphNode,
the difference
yes,
in
defaults. Yes, fully defaults because I have absolutely no clue what the environment variables do. Nobody is there to explain them.
Yeah,
like in detail.
I only run the flags that make it run. I've never been same. I don't know what they do or the consequences of changing them are.
Exactly. Don't touch what ain't broke.
Okay. I pitched this as a topic in another chat because I think this is something that I think will just improve all of us when we kind of understand the different things that we can what levers we can pull and what knobs we can turn as an indexer. Hold on one sec. There was one specifically that I thought was super interesting. This one. Look at this. Totally wild. So this one environment variable, the number of workers used for batch operations. If there are idle connections, each subgraph copy operation will use up to this many workers to copy tables in parallel. Defaults to 1 must be at least 1. I did something the other day where I deployed a subgraph that was using a graph. In the studio, I watched it in parallel copy all tables at once. The whole graph, which was normally like a 4 or 5 day process, finished in like 30 minutes. It was magical. And I was like, what? Like, how are we copying this in parallel? Come to find out, this is just like a simple environment variable that we could have set the whole time. And so I was like, oh my God, why are we using, 1 here? We should be using 10. We should use 20, right? Like, let's monitor our RAM and see like, okay, how much usage is this actually getting? But some of these like nasty copy transactions, during a graph can be made really simple just by setting a simple parameter from a 1 to a non-1 value. And I feel like there's probably like, there's probably gold in here just in terms of like, how do we make ourselves more efficient? One thing that I was running into with Uniswap specifically, because I've been doing a little bit of ad hoc work on one of the Uniswap contracts for some people that wanted to query Uniswap data. But they were running into issues where most indexing solutions couldn't keep up with the V4 base contracts. And I started to dig in and pull some information, which I thought was pretty wild. But they've got one event that's firing 50 times a second, and it's a pretty streamlined event. It runs in like 20, 25 milliseconds. But if you have 50 of them, that's greater than 1 second of data processing for every second that occurs on chain. And it's evident in that subgraph, right? If we look at, oh, good, we're failed on it right now. I'm going to paste this in here. Right, if we look at this, 𝗨𝗪𝗪 is pretty close to the chain head, and most others are far away. But this is true of not only the graph but other subgraph hosting providers, right? And the team that I was working with, they had said some of the other subgraph hosting providers were not able to keep up with the chain head. And so then, this subgraph started to get a lot more queries because it was the only place to get this data. And I was like, okay, well, in theory, our network should be like the experts of these different things, like these environment variables. Ultimately, if that can make our indexers more efficient than competitor indexers, to me, that's something that's very interesting.
Just
Yeah, to
curious,
Vince's point. Go ahead.
What did you turn up your batch workers to?
We did 10, which
Oh,
means that,
okay.
and a lot of subgraphs, you might have anywhere between, 6 at the most 30 different tables, just kind of generally speaking, right? Usually you don't have a subgraph that has hundreds of entities, right? Now we were just kind of like, F it, let's try 10. But, the inspection of like, okay, what does that do to my RAM on my graph node? Do I get resource constrained? Is that going to cause issues? Those are things that we haven't really tested, but are really worth us testing or other people testing, right? To your earlier question of GraphNode team commenting on these, that's something that I feel like would be super useful for me because I haven't played with these types of things, and some of them are pretty self-explanatory. After reading the description of it, I'm like, oh yeah, we should totally increase this value. We should increase the cache of the total entities stored, right? Which just let me see if I can find that one. Yeah, look at this one. Size of the entity cache in kilobytes defaults to 10,000, which is 10 megabytes. Right? You want to index things faster, and you got extra RAM, just increase your cache. Now you have more entities that can be stored inside of there. Right? Like that seems like an obvious, simple little thing that we could kind of tweak to give our indexers, just higher performance in general. Oh, Abel can't talk still. That's right. Yeah, it is annoying. But yeah, I mean, from my side, what I would love is just a basic understanding of when should these variables be adjusted, right? What problem would it solve by increasing or decreasing, or turning true to false or false to true or whatever. And then also having an understanding of like, okay, well, which variables did the hosted service run, or is the upgrade indexer running? And ultimately, like, why did it start doing that? And going through each of these, I think would be a nice improvement. I got you, Abel. Slim, did you want to update the group with some of the discussions from Thursday as a follow-up?
Yeah.
Any new changes?
Not so much changes other than the session on the workshop session on Thursday. For those that have been following along, we are looking into a eligibility oracle to ensure indexes on the graph network meet a minimum requirement. And over the last two IOHs and over two indexer experience working group calls, we've visited those criteria and we've come at it at different angles to see what criteria does it make sense to start with, what criteria do we want to move towards in the future. And I think it was a very helpful couple of workshops, just because we got to get some perspective on where the initial proposal was coming from, like what is the current status on the graph network. Some of the key stats there being that 30% of indexes serve 0 queries at all, and further 20% serve queries, but either on very few subgraphs or very few days per month. And we try to reduce the criteria down to its simplest form, but also not oversimplify it so that there's no path forward. So in the last call, some of the authors of the initial proposal, Rem and Samuel from Edge and Node, both joined to give their perspective as well, and I think that was very helpful. And we landed, or we circled back to something very similar to the initial criteria, just with fewer subgraphs and fewer days of uptime than the original one. So I guess the base form of the criteria is something like I posted in chat now, which would be a starting point, and then we would also have a phased approach where any changes to these criteria will be communicated both in communication channels as well as a specific GitHub repo where indexes can follow any changes. So it will be gradual. It will still be based on continuous feedback from indexes. So there won't be any big changes. But that is where we look at proceeding right now. It's very similar to the initial one, but I think we were able to appease some of the questions that we got, and we appreciate a lot of those questions. And look forward to work more tightly with indexes going forward. There'll be quite a few exciting things that we'll work on these working groups already, like this fall, including Horizon dips and other opportunities for indexes to join and get back into contributing directly to the protocol development. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, that is the update on it. Is there anyone else that is? So half of the people here on this call was also attending the 𝗨𝘀𝗧 workshop group. If anyone else want to add something, then feel free. Or if anyone have any questions. So. Okay, I'll take that silence as a no. And yeah, this will move forward quite soon. So I'll be sure to come here on IOH and update you guys as well when there's a development on this eligibility proposal. And there was one more thing that was brought up on one of these calls, is that this have already been prototyped and can be deployed and run alongside the network without having any impact on the network, just so we can see it in practice and see that it is working as intended. So that is something that would happen very soon as well, following our discussions here. So I'll be sure to update people there, and that is something that you would we can share some data from the testing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do we have an expectation of, assuming everyone's in consensus, do we have an expectation of when something like this could go live? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but still worth asking.
It will still have to go through a government proposal, like the initial, how should I say, the dry run, where we are not in any capacity impacting indexing rewards, could go live already this month, and so could like this month, early next month, we could also have a proposal live on the forum, an official GIP, and from there it would go through council governance, and we could start the implementation work. There are some audits that would need to be done that will also take some time. There's some implementation, and we'll also view the results of the dry run, and that could also, if everything goes well, there's no delays, but if not, then we'll have to revisit the numbers, and we'll also continuously monitor like which indexes would be eligible under these criteria, and see, make sure there's absolutely zero false, how should I, false positive, false negatives in this oracle. So
I have
yeah.
2 questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I guess my first question is, after the indexer meetings, say everything gets all in consensus as much as we can get it with that working group that you've put together. Thank you, by the way. Does that also go on the forum and offer some time for discussion before it goes to a vote, or is it going from these topic discussions in these meetings that you've put together, and then it just goes to a vote?
It would first be published as a GRP, and then be if there's contentious response, then we would
Work on it more.
we would work on it more. But
Okay.
if not, we've seen over the past few months that there's been less responses on some of the GRPs. We do hope that we know that the indexer community is quite active. So I will be here in IOH encouraging people to take a look at the official proposal and come with feedback on it. But it's easier to come with feedback before the proposal goes live. So if there's any last minute concerns as well, like, feel free to reach out to me directly, as this will probably proceed quite quickly over the next week before we get onto the forum. So
Okay, and then I guess my second question also has to do with the forum and the council and how these things go. So for the council meetings that are posted in the forum, they don't really have any substance at all. Like it just says these people attended and we talked about this, and that's it. And I was wondering if there could be more transparency in council note taking and what was discussed, and more openness in that aspect. So yeah, I was just wondering that as well.
that is a good piece of feedback. I'm also going to add that I have a board that I'm tracking requests from indexers, including everybody of you that fill the extensive form. I'll forward that as well and look at what we can do with it. Ultimately, it comes down to a council / foundation have to look at what we can disclose there. But yeah, is there anyone else that feels the same way, that are following the council discussions? I see that there's wow, yeah, that.
Well,
Yeah,
I guess
I
that's kind of
understand
my
that.
point. There's no way to follow them because
Yeah.
there's nothing there. It's just we proposed something. I don't know what it is, or anything.
Yeah, I'll bring that internally in or with foundation and council and see what we can do there. I'll note it down as something requested by indexers as well. So yeah, thanks for that feedback. And I'll get back to it when yeah, once I've had a chance to discuss it. So
If you're bringing that up, can you also bring up so when we look at snapshots and voting for various proposals, there's no way to tell which council members voted for what. It's just all Ethereum addresses, and we don't know, the people that are representing everything. We don't know which way things are swaying, or anything like that. So if there could be transparency in that, that would be awesome too.
best noted. Thanks so much for that feedback. We'll pass that along and bring that along and discuss it. So. And yeah, I appreciate your commitment to, like Vince, to transparency, both from foundation and from council. And I echo those sentiments as well. It's one of the things that does make the graph network what it is. So, well, that's all I had. And we're on time, unless Abel, do you like Abel can't go over time either. Like Abel is muted today, so I guess
He's just getting out of pronouncing names.
yeah. I guess I'll round off IOH for this week then. Thanks everybody for joining. And, see you guys next week.
Thank you.